guys, welcome back, and today we're going to be doing part 2 of winemaking, and we're just going to go over the steps and what we need to do and the parts and pieces, and we'll get the second part done, and then the last part 3 I'm probably going to do the final step, which is bottling it, but for now we're going to be doing the day 14 and day 15 steps. So we'll do today, and then camera magic, come back tomorrow, finish up, but we'll get to that part. So let me get set up here and we'll show you what we need to get going. Alright, so I'm doing 2 wines, so I'm going to have 2 of a lot of things. So if you're just doing 1 wine, obviously you need 1 of some of the stuff, but first we'll start with my carboys. I started out with buying a glass one, and it worked well. Glass is great. Glass is super sterile, easy to clean, a lot of maintenance in them, but getting the wine in and out is not my favorite thing to do. So because you can get them with spouts in them. They do make those. They're kind of expensive. You could try to do it yourself without cracking the carboy. I don't know. It's a process of siphoning and using gravity to get it out. But we're not going to do that. So I purchased these with these plastic ones with these spigots in them. And they're called Big Mouth because obviously on top they have a very large mouth to be able to access your liquids in there, and they'll make some things easier. You'll see in the future, especially cleaning. So I got 2 of those because I'm doing 2 wines, and then obviously I'm going to have the 1 step. We're going to be doing all of our cleaning, sanitizing with that. I need a mesh bag because I am working on a Cabernet Sauvignon that had oak chips in it, and I need to get the oak chips out of my liquid on this step. So I'll use that to catch most, if not all, the oak chips. Obviously, if you're not using oak chips, you don't need that. My bucket for creating my sanitizing solution. A couple of new airlocks. Just because I don't like to have to wash the ones in use and then put them in. Just like to have a clean set ready to go. A couple of these bungs that go in the top here, and then you can put your airlock in there. Without the bung, they have solid bungs that if you wanted to store your wine in a large vessel for a long period of time, you could put it in there like that. I have transfer hose. This is just some line I picked up at local hardware store, and I just bought enough to use to gravity feed down from my fermenting buckets. Obviously we'll have the hydrometer to take a ABV reading, gravity reading, and this is the most peculiar thing I have. This is my homemade wine whip. If anybody can guess what that was before I made it. It was a hanger. So it's a plastic hanger. Cut it in one side and kind of use a little bit of heat to mold it into a shape that would work for a whip. Now the whip will be used to de-aerate the wine, or get all the the little gas bubbles out of it after we transfer it to the new carboy there. So those, I believe, are most of the things I need. I might have something else, that I'll forget that I needed, and I'll bring it up later. But this is what I call my wine room, my cellar. It's in the back of my laundry room. It's just a utility room that has my water softener and heater, water heater in here. Wine rack that I made, and just some shelving that was already here. Some of it I added, but keep all my supplies in here for wine and beer making. As you can see up here, those are my 2 wines that have fermented for 2 weeks, so they're ready to be transferred to the carboy. But I put them on the top shelf a couple days ago so that I could gravity feed down to my lower station here, and you'll see that process in a little bit, but that's why I do that. So for now, I'm just going to sanitize everything and then bring you back when I'm done and save you guys that bit of boredom. Alright, see you in a bit. Okay, we got both the carboy sanitized and the lids, and I got everything else sitting in here soaking. And you know, obviously the only thing that doesn't fit down the side is the whip, so I just hit that with the Star San spray bottle that I have. We went over that in the last video, but it's just I mix it in a gallon jug of water, distilled water, and a 1/4 ounce of Star San, and then whenever I need some, I pour it into my little spray bottle, and away we go. So while we wait for that stuff to sit for a little bit, we're just going to go over the 2 days that we're going to do process. So for the sangria, and just about every kit you get, different wines, different manufacturers that put the kits together, there's going to be different steps, ways of doing things, and you'll even see in this one. But for day 14, we're going to transfer to the new carboy, and then we're going to agitate the wine, and then well, first we're going to add the there's bad lighting in here, the sulfite sorbate, which is this packet in. Then we're going to agitate, and then after that we put in the Kieselsoll, and forgive me if I mispronounce a lot of this stuff, I'm just guessing. And then day 15 for the sangria, we'd come back, add the flavor pack, which is re-sweetening and putting in the peach raspberry flavor, and then put in the chitosan, which as day 15 says, clearing, which so you know, making the wine look good. And then for this wine, day 26 is the earliest they recommend bottling, so we'll come back then and do that. But we'll check out the other wine kit, which is the Cabernet Sauvignon, and this lighting is just awful over here. How about that? So day 14, we're putting in potassium and the potassium sulfite and the potassium sorbate here, and we're not putting in the Kieselsoll today. That they want you to do on day 15. See how I'm saying everything's different per kit? So just pay attention to your instructions, try to follow them, because you know, if your kit turns bad and you want to get a refund or whatever, you can say you followed the instructions to a T. So just do that. If you don't really care, well, do your own thing. But that's that. I'm going to get set up here and start. We're going to take a reading for the gravity reading with the hydrometer, and we'll show that part, and then we'll do the transfer and go from there. So be right back. Okay, so I just wanted to point out something. Most fermenting buckets that you buy are not going to have this in. They'll have special buckets that will have them in, but I've modified mine. I bought these taps, put them in, you know, found the correct height to put them in there, and that works best for me. And Like with the carboy, it's easier to do a transfer with a spigot than it is with a siphon. So they do take extra requirements for making sure that they're clean. So just so you know that you have to make sure these are clean. It's a good place for something to get contaminated. So just take care of that. All right. So to get these taps open and get liquid out of them, there's a lot of pressure up here. So we need to pop the lid off. You can just take out the airlock. It should be fine, but I just like to pop the lid. It's got to come off eventually anyway, so we'll just do that. Okay, so let's take our reading. It is looking good already. I can tell when that hydrometer doesn't stick up out of that liquid very far. You know it's going to be. But I'll get the official number here in a second. But as you can tell, this wine is super cloudy, and that's going to be the process for clearing it out and getting it ready for bottling. So I'm going to take my reading off of this, then I'll do the other one after I clean this out, and we'll go from there. Okay, so my original gravity was 1.087. My new gravity is 0.995. Subtract those from each other, obviously larger, smaller from the larger, times it by 131.25, and that should give me pretty close to ballpark ABV. I'm saying about 12%. So that's right where I wanted to be with the sangria. I'll add the flavoring pack, so that's going to cut it a little bit. We'll take one more reading before we bottle on that one. The CAB is whatever we take for a reading is what it's going to be. So I'll take a reading off of that one, and then we'll start transferring. Okay, and we'll start the transfer process. I just have the tube going from there, gravity down to that one. So let's open the tap. Away she flows. Okay, so when you start seeing the air bubbles come down, you know it's at least down to here. So there's still, well, you can't see that. It's down to here when the air bubbles start coming out, right? But there's still going to be some wine in here, all right? So we need to get up on my trusty ladder, look in there, and we're going to kind of angle it forward to get the last bit out of there, because there's still a lot of goodness in there. You don't want to waste that. We got, that's okay. You're going to have some sediment at the end of it. When you go to bottle, it's all going to be sitting at the bottom, and it's all wine anyways, right? So we can still make crystal clear wine even with a little bit of sediment on the bottom. We'll show you that. So all right. Okay, so we want to add the sulfite sorbate, and then we're going to aerate the wine, de-aerate, agitate, you know, mix it up real good. So we'll do that. Again, as mentioned in the previous video, you don't have to add these preservatives to it. Anything with potassium preservative, you don't have to do it. Will it make your wine turn out better? Maybe. If you're really good at sanitizing, maybe you don't have to do it. It's just an extra layer of protection. Make sure that you don't get sick, and that's pretty important when you're drinking wine. You want to be able to enjoy it. So I'm going to get my mixer here. Get my wine whip. Alright, so I just got a cordless drill. Fit it into the end of it. Tie her on there. And I'm going to put the lid on when I do this because it might splash a lot, so I'll have to feed that down in there. Right, so this is going to get noisy, but the instructions say do it for 5 to 10 minutes. I'm going to do it for a couple. Okay. Basically, this one's ready to put the Kiesel saw in, so we'll do that. Let me just get my whip out of here. Generally speaking, these are not finger tearable, so I use my handy dandy helper. Careful, it is messy. I can just pour that right down that spout. I run my whip again in that, stir it up just a little bit. Run the whip. Okay. Well, there goes the lid. Alright, so this one is actually ready to put the bung and the airlock in, and it can be ready for day 2. The lid's pressed down. Bung in. Airlock. And I'm going to set this right up here. These are heavy, folks. That's 5 gallons of liquid, roughly 8 pounds, 40 pounds worth of liquid there. So get some a helping hand if it's too much for you. They also sell straps that help you lift if you're doing gravity feed, stuff like that. I just manhandle it. Since these are clear containers, technically there's no sunlight in my cellar. There's light. I always like to keep light off of it. I'm just going to take a little blanket, like I said, because they're clear, wrap it around here and just keep most of the light off of the wine. Light is your enemy. Alright, again, I'm going to come back and show you how to do the mesh bag for the oak chips in this one. So I'll show you that step at least for that one, and then we'll repeat the steps off camera for adding the ingredients, and then I'll bring you guys back for a wrap up. Okay, so this is the carboy for the Cabernet Sauvignon with the oak chips in it. So I put my mesh bag in and I clipped it around the top. Now, if you were doing this with a regular carboy with the narrow top on it, it'd make it a lot more difficult to do. You just have to stuff your bag down in there. Probably maybe rub like a rubber band around to hold it or something. But you know, I find these wide mouths just makes things a lot easier. But even though this is a small hole, small tube coming down, the wood chips have small enough pieces that they'll come down through this tube. So once it's all done, I will show you the aftermath of the wood chips, and hopefully my bag doesn't clog up too much. And show you all the particles that it's grabbing. Alright, we'll come back in a minute. Okay, so we're done transferring it. Let's see if we got any particles on here. Actually, not much. So most of it stayed in the bucket. Not much to show here. One or two chips. You can kind of see. I don't know if you can see that. Probably not. Lighting's horrible in here. There's like one or two chips in there, but kept everything out of the new one. And you can get these mesh bags, nylon mesh bags, from brew stores, Amazon, other places. Has to be nylon or some sort of synthetic. You don't want a cheesecloth or anything like that. You'll just introduce issues. So they're easy to sterilize when they're nylon. Very fine mesh, so liquid gets through but nothing else. And you can do things like adding oak chips to your dark reds, even your whites. So, alright, I'll finish up the other steps with the cab, and then we'll come back on a wrap up. Oh, I did the ABV reading on that, around 14. So 14. Poured a little in a cup here. Always enjoy your wines, right? Why make them if you can't enjoy them? And I got to tell you right now, it's drinkable as is, and that's pretty rare for this stage. Usually they're a little sour. So, but it's good. So, cheers. All right, guys. So there you have it. Day 14's done. Got them both racked into the new carboys and the preservatives added. Tomorrow I'll come back and we'll add the juice pack to the sangria and the rest of the clearing agents into the Cabernet. So movie magic, and we'll be back tomorrow. So just sit tight. Alright guys, we're back. Day 15. Today we're just going to be adding a few more ingredients into the wines, and then we'll let them set for from 11 to 14 days, more. Depends on when I can get to it. Your time there is kind of up to you after that, but we'll go through the steps. Mixed up a batch of one step. Don't need to sanitize much today, but I just did 1 gallon of it. You do the spoon. I'll re-sanitize the lids after we take them off, because if you take them off, you set them down somewhere, they're going to get contaminated a little bit. So we'll do that, and yeah, we'll get going. Okay, first we're going to do the Cabernet, and I got my 2 ingredients that we still need to put in. Sterilized spoon, and you don't have to go crazy stirring these in. You just make sure they're mixed in good, like you're stirring in some Kool-Aid. So, get that out. And that's it. So we'll put the lid back on the carboy and the airlock, and that one's ready to sit. So we'll come back and we'll do the sangria next. Okay, for the sangria we have the chitosan, pour that right in. Alright, and then the next step is what separates your sweet wines from your dries, but we're just going to add this flavor pack back in. And this is just sugar water with flavoring. So since it's done fermenting, it won't keep fermenting. We've also added the ingredients that will kill any yeast that are in there, so it holds the sweetness. And you can do this with any wine. You can add sweetness back in by adding some sort of sugar, whether it's table sugar or dextrose or whatever. But so we'll do that. We'll put this in, and then we're going to rinse this out with, it says a cup of water, you know, however much you want to put in there to rinse it out. You're not going to get a whole lot extra sweetness out of it by rinsing it a whole bunch of times, but we'll just use normal tap water. Again, at this point, your type of water doesn't really matter, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm just gonna go over to the tap, put cold water in here, and then we'll dump it in. Let me just put that water in there and slosh it around, get all this. I suppose we could put the cap back on there and really get it good. Again, you're not going to gain a whole lot by getting crazy on this. It really has an aromatic smell though. Peach raspberry. Put that in. Alright, so I'll grab my spoon and then we'll stir it up. And you don't have to go crazy, just make sure it's all combined in there. Maybe with the syrup, we'll have to mix it a little bit more. If you're using a metal spoon in a plastic container, you always want to be somewhat gentle, not to scrape up your sides too much. Put those deep cuts in there, it's hard to keep them clean from bacteria and such. Lid back on. Stopper in. Bung. And the airlock. Alright, so there you have it. Second day of the around day 14 period is done. We'll let these guys sit for at least 11 days, probably a little bit longer, and then we'll come back and we'll do another episode on bottling. So, alright guys, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and we'll keep putting out some content. Alright, see ya.